Alright, well, I'm still alive. Anne Frank's Diary. We get some poetic music in the setting of the Netherlands, or close enough. It's a distinct animation look, different than other stuff we saw in the mid-90s so far. I'd call it a little bit more French. You got a very warm palette. It reminds me of that game, Broken Sword. The city has a Art Nouveau charm to it. Going through Madhouse's work, I appreciate that they've tackled war stories from several different angles, although this is not the first time an anime has tackled the Anne Frank topic. Nippon Animation in 1979 did make a special, though all I can find about it is one image. Nowadays, this is the Anne Frank anime as we know it. And yeah, it looks good. There's sort of a flowery movement. I wonder if this was to be marketed to an international audience like Europe, just because they put a lot of effort into something that would only be internal. The movement is so precise and precious, very slow, methodical. They're savoured. Every movement is savoured. And I could see why Studio Ghibli took on Madhouse as a co-animation house for a lot of their projects. The piano music is soft. This Anne creates a fairy tale under this sort of European shores, until it doesn't. You know, at first I thought it was funny. It's a little bit weird hearing this Dutch Jewish girl speak Japanese fluently. Though I do actually know there was an English dub for this film, although I don't think it ever came to English shores, which is an interesting choice, to say the least. It did come to France though. If I was lucky, I could probably still find a copy. But there's yet to be an American release, even though there was plans for one. So this is the new god of Madhouse, in the director's seat. The director of Record of Lotus War. I hear that OVA is remembered fondly. It looks cool. I've never seen it myself. But the director, Akinori Nagaoka, he does fine here. It's a meticulous piece put together very well and tells the story in a very straightforward manner. One of the names that made me curious in the credits was English minimalist composer Michael Nyman, who I know best for the soundtrack of Gattaca. Yeah, he does great work, and this is a beautiful little piece. Very minimalist, like you'd expect. Speaking of music, look at this. Yeah, alright. Anne's ahead of her time. Alright, I'm being light here, but it's because this story isn't the most pleasant. If you know Anne Frank, it's because she's the 13-year-old whose diary shocked the world and humanized the portrait of the Holocaust, painting a vibrant picture of the city life before the end, which here is a slow ambient tone. You have raining in the evenings, a grueling walk to freedom quote. All you can hear is the rain and steps. There are at least a couple scenes in Anne that's cut away from its more mundane style setting into something that is actually quite gripping, although they are few and far between. There's a mellowness to it, slightly more mellow than most of the war films I've seen. Conflict does arise in tight spaces. In some ways, this is more like a family drama. Anne is repressed. She's repressed in a patriarchal prison, you could say. She's not able to speak her mind as much. She's frustrated, a frustrated youth who's also starting to grow up, become a woman. And a war zone is no place for that when your own body is a living one. One of the highlights here is the operatic song in the middle, in English of all things, but what can I expect from the composer? It does help build on a rapport and feeling upon the passing seasons, trapped in repeat. The longer you spend here, the more endeared you become to this existence of people, this life. They begin kind of frustrating and annoying, but I suppose the longer you stay with them, the more they become like comrades yourself. And it's a beautiful colour palette with soft movements, poignant music, though overall, I'd say this one's a bit dry as a whole piece. There are definitely moments of flair and great moments, but then you have to watch the rest of it. And like I said, it's fine. It's fine. But it is really the ending where it gets a little more punchy. The sadness overreaches, knowing how close they are, but it's never enough. Some of those scenes start to become so gripping then when you realise, is it today? Is it today? Is this the day that they don't get to make it? Hope draws in as D-Day begins. Perhaps they'll be saved. And you start to see the change in human condition. As their lives further slide into the chaos, with rationing and the tension of being trapped, like a bird in a cage, material items become less important to them as the people that they have to hold on to, the only thing keeping them sane. And you also start to learn how important the idiosyncratic parts of life are when you don't have them. towards the end, there's a complacency that perhaps they have made it. Perhaps only a couple more years, only a couple more months until it all ends. Their guard is dropped, and the Nazis find them. The kinship and hardship built up falls apart. They were so close. Another year, that's all it would have taken. Another year until it ended. But no, unlike the other Madhouse films about war, but focus on hope and the ability to keep going, here we're not as lucky. Only one of the family members survived, the father. No one else made it past the end of the war. And I think that in itself is the bullet that hits. Sure, it's a slow one. You spent the whole film in a sort of state of mild amusement and sometimes engaged, sometimes gripping the side of a seat. But it really is that final sting that hurts the most. You know, I once tried to watch as many versions of Treasure Island as I could. I was trying to find the best one, but then I missed out on the Dasaki version. I don't know how I did that. So the case is still out. I have no idea what the best version of Treasure Island is. There still might be a better one. People speak highly of the Nippon version, saying it's much better than this one. I can't tell you that, but there are countless other versions of the Anne Frank story out there, and I'm sure all of them are just as poignant at the end. Do I think this is a good version? I am not the connoisseur here. I wouldn't be able to tell you. But if this version seems like your kind of thing, and you can find it, and I guess you're into the history of Madhouse, I see no reason not to recommend it. I do think towards the end it won me over more, but overall it might be one of the weaker war films that Madhouse did, but that probably speaks to the strength of the war films that Madhouse has made so far. But yeah, if you are at all interested in war and the horrors of man, I think this is a somewhat more soft version of that situation. One more to go. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, Joven, and my Patreons. This month is almost over, and then we get back onto the road.